Welcome to the iNetrepreneur Radio Show. We are so honored to bring you your host, the ultimate celebritypreneur, connecting businesses and celebrities worldwide. Winner of the Networking Organization of the Year, best-selling author, magazine publisher, trainer, and owner and founder of Network Together and the iNetrepreneur Media Network from magazines, TV, and radio network. We're excited to bring you your host, Mr. Robert W. Jones.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I am so excited to be here today in sunny yet rainy Phoenix, Arizona, where it's at a balmy 91 degrees. And I can't complain too much because it hasn't been that hot that much this year yet. And my vegetables and my fruit garden and everything else I got growing out on the back nine, they are happy as heck. So again, I'm Robert Jones with the AOC and the iNetrepreneur Network. And I just want to go over a little bit of housekeeping before we get to our first guest. And yes, all of them today, we have some superstars on the show for today. I want to remind everyone that the #1 international best-selling book, 365 Days of Abundance Quotes, and the 365 Days of Abundance Journaling are on Amazon. You can go to mybook.to /Art of Connection 5. Put the number 5 in there. Again, it's mybook.to /Art of Connection 5, that number 5. And one of the things I want to say, my guests are here. It was the first time in history that a collaboration book of that size ever created 2 number 1s for one contribution. So Jeff and Hannah and Brent, we became 2-time international bestsellers with one contribution. And, we achieved over 200 different #1 international best statuses with our 5th book on abundance. And, what a perfect show to talk about abundance today with my guests. I also want to talk about one of our summits that's coming up. Our Art of Connection virtual summit. It's at artofconnectionsummit.com. Again, that's artofconnectionsummit.com. That's May 15th. It starts at 8 a.m. It's from 8 to noon. And then from noon to 2 o'clock, we have 2 special VIP guests coming in for all authors. We have David Goldberg of Edge Studio Voiceover, the #1 independently owned voiceover studio in the world. And then after that, we have Preston Weeks. Yes, that Preston Weeks, Mark Victor Hansen's son. He's going to be coming in afterwards to give all of us entrepreneur authors 5 tools that we must use to create awareness, impact, and monetization, to sustain ourselves, our family, and those around us that we love. So I'm really excited about having them come into the VIP Summit VIP segment. Also, we love your likes. We love your likes. So go to facebook.com /iNetrepreneur Radio or go to YouTube at youtube.com /iNetrepreneur Radio and like us. So you don't have to spell that over and over again. Just bookmark it, or just register. So it gives you like a little signal, like a little dot that says, the show's coming on. We'd love that. Also, we have iNet Publishing. iNet Publishing produces now 4 magazines. We have the iNetrepreneur magazine. We have the Contemporary Woman magazine. We have Infinite Core Living magazine. And we have another magazine. We're starting to get so many, I can't even remember them all. So my sometimes is kicking in. But we have another magazine. Oh, the Art of Connection magazine. So please, you can go to any of those websites and find out more information and subscribe on that. We have about 40,000 people in our subscriber list, mostly entrepreneur authors, but they're the people that you want to do business with, and they're out there. Also, for more events, classes, pop-up summits, stuff like that, you can go to ntevents.net. That's ntevents.net for nearly 800 meetings and events per year that the iNetrepreneur Network and Network Together puts on. Woo, man, I'm getting, God, give me a tissue. I'm hot with all the stuff that's going on. Well, I'm really excited because I have some really great friends on today. And probably the friend I've known the longest is coming on the show first. I'm really excited to introduce him. And that friend is Mr. Brent Kesler. That friend is Mr. Brent Kesler. Brent, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic, Robert. Yeah, man, you got a lot going on. So thanks for having me on today.
No, absolutely. See, I was so excited. I actually put your ticker on before I put you on.
It's all good.
Oh my gosh, tickle them with the ticker. Again, everyone, and I always like to say this because I don't know where the guys send out this show. I know it goes through all these radio stations and podcasts, and then they take the show, they do something magical, and then it goes on to our streaming channels. So I'm just really fortunate, and I'm so happy that we have a great team that does all the things that I don't know how to do, and quite frankly, I don't want to know how to do them anymore. I love that they do that for me. Again, I'm with Brent Kesler. He's the founder of the Money Multiplier Method. You can contact him at Brent at the, and that's the main thing I had to learn for the longest time. It's like Brent would say, Robert, it's not Money Multiplier, it's the Money Multiplier. So everyone out there, it's Brent at themoneymultiplier.com, or you can call him at 785-248-9637. And Brent, I'm still going to go back in time just a little bit. I still remember you. I was helped doing promotions on an event in Phoenix, Arizona. And this was for a Grant Cardone event. You remember that?
Yeah, I sure do. That was a long time ago, Robert.
No, that was a long time ago. And I remember meeting you, and then I remember meeting Hannah. And Hannah was, I don't know, she was like 18 or 12, or, I don't know. She was a lot younger. And so I remember her, coming out into the room, and, you talked to her a little bit, and, she, probably just really new in the business and trying, getting her feet wet and starting to learn, the game that we all play. And that's the game of promotion and getting found. And I'll never forget what, when you went up there, and you were talking about your life story, and you were talking about how, you always had this heart of wanting to help people. And in your really first chosen profession was, being a chiropractor in Kansas. And I remember thinking to myself, well, you're a chiropractor and you're in Kansas. What more could you want? That sounds like a pretty good career to me. Why would you want to change that? And then you start talking about, what's really behind what goes on in being a chiropractor. And you started talking about the cost and the insurance and the rental, all these things. And all of a sudden, I was even thinking, well, maybe it's not as good as I thought, but that's when we met, and I'm not going to go into the money multiplier thing, but tell us a little bit about, your career as a chiropractor, and maybe some of the things that you loved and maybe some of the things you didn't love, and why you sought a change.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. And again, I love being a chiropractor. I love helping patients, with their problems, with their pain, and trying to get them back to a normal function. And, as you said, right, I was a chiropractor in Kansas City. I had 5 clinics. I built it up to 5 clinics in the Kansas City area. And I actually just had a passion for that. I mean, I really enjoyed doing it. But then, right, so I discovered this thing about how to build, keep, and create wealth in your own family. And I discovered this concept through my mentor, R. Nelson Nash, who wrote the book, Becoming Your Own Banker. And right, the thing is I took that system and that concept and I applied it into my own life. I paid off $984,711 in third-party debt in 39 months. And I was so excited about that. And as far as, right, this tool that I discovered that the wealthy have been using for over 200 years that nobody's ever taught us. And I just became really passionate about that. So I decided to switch careers, and I decided, to make a career to serve and help people to break the bonds of financial slavery that they didn't even realize they're in by taking control of their own money.
And that's what I remember hearing from you, because I think what really touched me was, it wasn't necessarily the money thing. It was kind of like that emotional and mind thing, because we don't see we're trapped. And then, you had a mentor come in and show how trapped we were, because every time we grow our business, when the business grows, the costs grow, and the costs grow, and then you have to grow your business more. And it's like this ever, ongoing cycle of just trying to stay ahead each and every day. And that's quite frankly what you were telling me. Here you are, a man of good faith and of good heart, wanting to help people, to get them to feel better physically. And I say, if you don't feel good physically, nothing else matters. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care how much meditation you do. If you hurt chronically, and with physical pain, nothing matters but just trying to feel good again. That's where you were, but weren't you on that same cycle of every time that you expanded, there was an equal amount of costs coming at you?
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, right, probably a big stressor just in my life. And again, okay, so like a lot of people think, okay, well, he's a chiropractor, so he's a doctor, he has a name on the office building out there, and like, well, right, so okay, so anyway, so he must be doing good financially because he's a doctor. But that's not the case. Most doctors and most lawyers, and again, or at least back then, right, so they were struggling with debt and expense. And of course, too, you kind of have the mindset of you got to keep up with the, anyway, no pun intended, but you got to keep up with the Joneses, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so again, right, so that was a big stressor in my life, was just trying to keep all of that going. And right, it was a battle with just being able to keep money, because as you said, as things continue to go on, you spend more, and you're just kind of in the rat race of, you're just kind of going and you're living maybe from paycheck to paycheck or month to month. And, and of course, in the chiropractic business, just because you put your name, okay, so up on the door, it doesn't mean patients are going to come into your office and run into your office. No. So you have to constantly network and market to get more new patients or more people just to come in your office doors, because the office overhead is there one way or the other, whether the money or the patients are coming in or not.
Yeah. And there is no limit to the amount of opportunities that someone wants to come in there and help you drive your business, Brent, because they're your friends, with some type of loan that's going to just create and exasperate the debt that you may already be, encountering, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I was thankful, to have loans and have banks loan money and stuff, but it was kind of hard. And sometimes I didn't get the money that I wanted. The one thing I discovered about getting loans, especially from banks, is that, it's all right. It's like, if you need the money, the banks are saying, no, we really don't want to give it to you. But now that I don't need their money anymore, now I'm approached all the time. Hey, can we lend you some money? You know what I mean? So it's kind of a crappy thing, because people that need money have a hard time of really getting it. Yeah. So, but yeah, just a lot of stressors in that. And so I found this concept again. I was in that debt, which was causing me a lot of stress, just in student loans. Right back in, back in the early 2000s. Okay. So a student was coming out of chiropractic college on average about $310,000 in student loan debt. That's just their student loan debt. So now they come out of school and now they have to go get a job, or they have to open up an office building. And then, of course, no bank or no lender wants to lend someone money that already has, that excess of debt and really has no experience at all, in just being able to run a business.
Well, and the other things too and so you were able to break it away. You had a mentor that talked about this concept called infinite banking, and I explained to people what infinite banking is. And it really is kind of like one of those concepts where you actually really kind of need a team around you. And, because it works so well that it's not believable. It's not that it's unbelievable. It's people think it's not believable, and it isn't true, and it doesn't work. And I myself have found some disciplines out of it. every year I fund my policy. Every year it's like the little engine that just keeps supplying me more. But, the other thing that's really helped me do is just discipline myself to, be prepared. And I think sometimes when we think about, the infinite banking and how we can draw from it, I also think that the infinite banking method also, creates a certain amount of commitment, to what you're doing. And I think that that's some of the things that infinite banking does. So what are some of the biggest misconceptions that people have about infinite banking that drive you crazy and just might make you want to, put up the red flag and say, stop, let's have a conversation?
Yeah. Well, again, I'll tell you, I was in that boat because again, okay. So as you know, my story, Robert, I first heard about this concept in 2006, right? I was in a conference and I heard somebody talking about this thing, becoming your own banker, how to just to pay off your debt, build and keep and create wealth through your own debts and expenses that you already have. And I thought it was too good to be true. So after I heard it, I didn't even act upon it for 2 years, right? So it took 10 or 12 of my colleagues that heard the information the same time that I did to actually implement it and put it into play in their own life. And then what they did is they came to me and they said, oh my gosh, this stuff works so good. It's so powerful. I mean, I'm doing this, I'm paying off debt, recapturing, recycling money. So I thought to myself, there has to be something to this, right? There's no way that 10 or 12 of my colleagues are lying to me, maybe 1 or 2, but not 10 or 12. So then in February of 2008, I just told my wife, I said, honey, we're going to implement this concept in our life. And it was at that time that I owed $984,711 to third-party creditors, put this concept in place, and I paid that off in 39 months. And Robert, all I did was added one step in my financial life. I didn't have to work harder, change my cash flow, take any additional risk, or lose control. I simply added one step in my life. And now I've been teaching this concept for 13 years and 2 months since March of 2012 around the country, probably 50 to 70 live events a year, another 100 to 120 Zoom virtual events like we're doing today. And now, right, so people are just like, oh my gosh, I got to do it. I got to do it because they're hearing of all these other people that are doing it. But see, it's not what we've been taught. All right. So to go back to your question on the misconceptions. Okay. The misconceptions is all the noise you hear out there from other people. So the Dave Ramsey, the Susie Ormans, and all of those people, maybe your financial advisor, your accountant, or people in your life that they really think that, right? So they think they know really everything there is to know about wealth and money. And it comes to find out they really don't. So all we're doing, Robert, is the thing we're doing is implementing the tools, the concept that the super wealthy have been using, again, right? Again, not just super wealthy, but wealthy have been implementing for over 200 years. The Rockefellers, Rothschilds, Morgan Stanleys, Barclays, all we're doing is going to do exactly what they're doing. So I'm not reinventing the wheel.
Yeah, but here's the other things. I think that sometimes I really would like to say, Brent and Hannah, these are the things that we need to get across, because it in certain respects, once you get it, you can't unget it. Once you do it, you can't undo it. And it becomes so simple. It's just like, you have to have Dave Ramsey's and you have to have Susie Orman's making this stuff so damn complicated. You think that you got to pay half of anything that you make, to get the answers. And here, with this system, and especially your team, because even all infinite banking companies aren't equal. You put the people in place, and these people stay with you because you take care of them, and that right there is success in itself. And they answer your questions, they take your calls, they set up the meetings, they follow up with you, and yes, I'm everyone out there. I'm giving a testimonial. I've been with Brent and Hannah for over 4 years now, so I am a raving fan. But it is simply has helped me in my life, my wife, my kids, etc. create simple little steps, not these complicated things where you're signing off forms and you're waving away, different things in our life. It's just creating simple little disciplines. And I think that is a part of the shock that happens once it starts to really, come into focus. It's like, and I hate saying this because it sounds so conspiracy like, but it's almost like, in the financial world, they want everyone to live a lie, because if they knew the truth, everyone would be financially well off, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and again, Robert, okay, like over the years, I've known you, and I've like spoke at many audiences where you have been there, you've hosted the audience, or you've just been like in the audience, and the common thing that you see is that, right? So after I get done talking about this, I mean, people come up and say, oh my gosh, I knew there was something different that I should be doing financially, or I knew there was information out there that I didn't just know about. I knew there had to be something different. And like people are coming up, as you know, and they're like, right? They're like, it's amazing information. And probably the big question they ask is, why hasn't anyone told me about this? Well, and because I'll tell you, the first time I learned about this is actually, I was mad at my parents and grandparents because they never shared this information with me. But it's not that they didn't share it with me, right, on purpose. They just didn't know. Nobody ever taught them. So this concept, the process, the system is a totally outside of the box concept. It's not what you're being taught by your parents and your grandparents and your friends, your colleagues, and your coworkers. This is an outside of the box concept. But I'll say that it's not on trial. It's not being tested. As I said earlier, it's been around for over 250 years. So all we do is mimic what the wealthy have been doing for all of that time.
And one of the greatest things that wealthy and super wealthy do is, instead of, passing on generational debt, you have the ability as a dad to a daughter to pass on generational wealth. And I can't think of any greater gift than being able to teach your kids a financial philosophy that allows them to not only take what you've done, Brent, but actually amplify what you've done and even carry that on. Would you agree?
I definitely do. As a matter of fact, I say all the time, the one thing that really lacks is in society is financial education. And I encourage people, our clients, all the time, or even our non-clients, whenever we're speaking to people, the thing that we say is, look, the thing you have to do is you have to start getting just together around the kitchen table with your family to talk about money and finances. And most families don't do that, no matter if they're doing good in their financial life or bad in their financial life. It's a very uncomfortable topic, but we have to do it. We have to get together with the family and talk about the dynamics of the wealth in the family, right? And how are we going to set up our financial lives to keep that money in the family, to keep control. It's all about control of your money, to keep the money in your family, to keep that money in a closed system so that money is not going to leak out to other people. And I know you're going to be talking to Hannah, my daughter, in just a few minutes, and Hannah will probably touch on, how we've implemented this just in our family life, just not me and my kids, but right, we've also expanded it into, our greater family as well. So it's so important. And it doesn't mean you have to believe in this concept or not. But the thing is that you have to get with your family and you have to talk about money. We have to have those conversations.
I agree with that so much. And that's why, Brent, anytime I can get you and Hannah in front of our audiences, you guys are like my first call to get up there. And quite frankly, we have an entrepreneur summit coming up here in about 2.5 months. So we can talk about that a little bit later after the show, because my goal is how many people I can save. And that is your goal too. And one of the pillars that we have in our community is you got to have the pillar of financial wellness. physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, but along with that is the pillar of currency. And you guys teach that at the highest level. Brent, I want to thank you for being on the show today. Everyone, I've been with Mr. Brent Kesler, one of my great friends. I love it. And remember, I was born in Kansas myself. So, so let's go Jayhawks and Wildcats and Pori and all that. We got it. So Brent Kesler, founder of the Money Multiplier Method. You can contact him at Brent at that's THE Money Multiplier. It's so good. It should be THEE, but Brent at themoneymultiplier.com, or call him at 785-248-9637. That's 785-248-9637. Brent, thank you so much for being on the show today. Stick around and we'll have a huddle at the end so we can all make fun. No, so we can all comment each other's show segments.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Robert. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Wow, I love Brent. I just love him. The first time I saw him at the Grant Cardone, and there was a private after party, I saw him speaking there, and I thought, man, he's going to be my brother for life, and like 8 years later, you know what? He's still my brother for life. And speaking of brothers from another mother, I have another gentleman that I just, I love this guy. He's a brother in arms, U.S. Marine, sniper qualified, and I'm bringing him to the stage right now, and that's Mr. Jeffrey Morris. Jeffrey, how are you?
Hoorah, Marine.
Hoorah, Marine. Welcome to the show.
Robert, I got this one request. If you could ask Brent to just pick up his enthusiasm a little bit, because he just doesn't have enough. He doesn't have enough. That's the pick up a little bit.
Yeah, I know. I mean, like, come on, get some more coffee, take some caffeine pills or something, Everyone, I am with Jeffrey Morris. Hey, graduate and Marine Corps sniper. He's the CEO of DreamSmart Behavioral Solutions. You can reach him at jmorris at DreamSmartBehavioralSolutions.com, or call him at 760-415-1071. Again, this is Jeff Morris of DreamSmart Behavioral Solutions. And Jeff, man, I get you. And I people, they talk a lot about, living their life and being happy and being fulfilled, and I say that there's 5 pillars that create that, and one of those pillars is currency, and currency can't correct everything, but it certainly can help, can it?
Absolutely. As Brent and Hannah will attest to, the more currency we have without debt creates more time and freedom for us. And I think as those who are working in the work world, most of us are asking for more time and more freedom, and currency certainly can do that.
Yeah. And so I want to go in a similar direction, like with Brent and how we were coming along in our conversation. And in many ways, Brent talks about something like the practical and kind of tactical ways that he's been able to change, where he was going from chiropractic, and kind of like, I call it living in the hole, and going from living in the hole to getting to, straight line, to actually, starting to see from, what I call the financial mountaintop, but there's so much more. And, Brent, it took him 2 years to get involved. It took me, over 4 years. I think it was 5 years. I've been a member of Money Multiplier for 4 years now, and it took me 5 years to say yes. And there was so much more to it. There was like, maybe I didn't have all the people around me. I didn't know anyone who was in infinite banking. I didn't have, Hannah and Brent around me all the time. So there was like lots of gaps. But, what I saw in them was the same quality, the same passion. I saw them, bringing in more people, and I was listening to the testimonials. And then one day I said, this is what I need to do, but it took an amount of time before I felt safe. I had the trust, I knew I wanted it, but for some reason it took me a lot, to change my mindset, I guess. And, to say, yes to, like, if I change my life, that means I'm going to have to change my habits. I'm going to have to change my lifestyle maybe. And, whatever it was, why sometimes, Jeff, when we see things that are the right things to do, especially in money, sometimes we just put the brakes on and we don't allow ourselves to do it. What is it with money mindset and temperament that keeps us from, gaining our own individual wealth?
Robert, that's a great question. And you and I have talked very specifically about these things. When we think about money, most people think that money's a logical decision. I know I need to save more, right? Spend less. I know I should be investing. I know I should be whatever you've been taught. But what we see is money is not logical. Human beings aren't wired to logically spend money because money is deeply rooted in behavioral patterns. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, money can break the tightest of families even, can it?
To your point, Robert, when I say that behavior is deeply rooted in behavioral patterns, we're talking about the relationships that you have with money, your money story. These stories and these early money messages often come from our families, starting about the age of 3. By the time we're 18, 19, these things become deeply rooted into how we're going to behave with our money. If we're going to see money as an investment, do we use it as a tool? If we use it as a tool that we try to manipulate people with, right? Robert, even our culture plays a role in how we're going to spend our money. Do we see it as a tool? Is it a status symbol? Or is it a survival strategy? And then ultimately your biology. How are you naturally wired to have money, save it, invest it, and all those things that go along with it? So 3 things: relationships, culture, biology, deeply rooted behavioral patterns, into wise money spending or not so wise.
Well, and it's really interesting. I have been learning, as you do one thing, you do everything, and if you're afraid to invest in something in one thing, that means you're afraid to invest in everything. If you're afraid to grow in one area, many times you're afraid to grow in all the other areas. These things all seem to be aligned. And we can only grow if we break through, even one area, because it chips away all the other areas that may be limiting us as well. And one of the biggest areas that we tend to be stuck in is that financial area. And, but along with the family and along with what we've been taught, on television and in school and, all these things, how do you break past with someone who believes the truth is there, but then the truth actually resides somewhere else? How do we break that type of mindset?
Well, Robert, again, we're going to integrate science into our methodology, into our process, right? As to your point, some of us are naturally wired to be cautious and we're going to avoid risk. Some of us are really fast-paced and we're going to make really quick choices that could be emotional. Neither way is right or wrong. It's just about having an awareness, a starting place for you understanding how you can optimize your best self when it comes to these types of concepts. Infinite banking that Hannah and Brent are so skilled at. A roadblock could be what we're talking about now, not knowing how someone is wiring. And when we can get some information, we can really design really impactful programs such as infinite banking and help us speed up our wealth creation process.
But many times, before you can work on the money part, really we have to work on the belief part. And
Mm,
no matter what personality type, if you don't believe in it, it's not going to work.
right.
No matter what personality type you have, you still have to have a starting point. Now someone might, go into the sprint and the other person might take the marathon route, but there still has to be that igniter, the fire starter point that says it's go time. You know, when you're coaching clients and you coach clients to break through all sorts of barriers, whether real or contrived, whether it's in their strength or it's in their struggles, money tends to be sometimes the most complicated because it's also one of the temperaments that people feel most judged about. So it's not just the inside you're battling, it's the outside you're battling as well, isn't it?
Absolutely, Robert. And the work that we will do at DreamSmart will be working from the inside out, right? We talked about the behavioral side of money. We're now going to talk about the money story that's been integrated or wired since about the age of 3 that becomes deeply embedded. And so when we're working with clients, we have to understand not only that their what we call their behavioral superpowers or their money temperament, this other side of the behavior superpowers is your money temperament. We have to think about how their money story is impacting their life. Right? This comes down to neuroscience. If you are wired, it's kind of like computers, right? Good in, good out. Geico, I think the thing is, right? But if you have bad money wiring and bad money stories or ones that defeat your best self, we have to go back and really think about how we're going to leverage science to maybe rewire some of the thinking processes that may be limiting how we're thinking about money.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that for myself, I don't know if Hannah's ever heard me say this, but there was one time in my life I said, you know what, I'm going to write the book, and the book's going to be called The Slowest Way to Success. And all of a sudden people heard that and they said, well, no one's going to buy The Slowest Way to Success. And I said, I know, you're right. No one wants the slowest way to success. We all want to get there, right?
Right.
But one of the things is like for me, I admit it took me, for me, that part of my life, I didn't know it. It took me some 5 years to get past, I was taking that slow ride to success, but I didn't have DreamSmart to help me understand why my behavior was slowing me down.
Right.
I mean, to me, what a perfect pairing. DreamSmart helping people like me take 5 years and go, then I'm going to come out with my book. No, it's not the slowest way to success. It's the fastest way to success. That's how we're going to help you. I would have been with Brent and Hannah like 4 years earlier.
That's right.
If I would have had some type of breakthroughs. And that's why I think for me, this is so important. It's coming to a place that maybe we can help others, not just become a part of infinite banking, not just becoming a part of breaking from their financial chains and doing the things that we've been taught in all these different settings, but it's also breaking them free from the self-held beliefs that's kept them in poverty, or it's kept them in a bad financial situation, or it's kept them living from paycheck to paycheck year after year after year after year. Because for me, for me to be successful, for you to be successful, and for Hannah and Brent to be successful, those are the people we want. They're the ones that we want to help them break free of this. And doesn't your program help with that?
Absolutely, Robert. You've heard me say many times that self-awareness is the best awareness, right? And we've talked about money temperament. Let me just really quickly explain what the concept of money temperament is. It's really the behavioral lens in which you see, you feel, and you interact with money. We said it's deeply behavioral. It's like a fingerprint that's unique to you. Robert, when I reviewed your money profile, I saw your risk behavioral analysis. You're going to be slow to move. I saw your wealth building motivation. How high is that? Imagine if Brent had this information for all of his clients. Are they risky or not? What's their ability to follow a plan like infinite banking? How are they financially, emotionally prepared to even invest in something like this. So when we're working with our clients, we really are getting to the root of who they are, starting with their money temperament, and we're going to end up increasing what we say is their money energy, right? Very important, two very important concepts that I can't go into depth with today, but know that there's a money temperament and there's a money energy, and both of those things are intertwined together. And when you understand those things, you can speed toward wealth.
I love that. So, let's go into, a person's emotions and subconscious. There are simply things that we just can't control because we aren't self-aware of them. Doesn't your system help everyone become aware of those things so they can, change their habits, which will also modify their subconscious, correct?
That's right, Robert. It's an inside out approach for us. We have to ask the question, who am I? Right. And what am I not? And then what do I need to be my optimal self? And then what is the community that I belong to so that I can find my best self? Yeah. And that's why I'm so in love with what you do with iNetrepreneur. Great community of like-minded people. I can't remember all that you say about it, but like-minded, heart. How do you say it, Robert? Tell me what it is.
Like-minded, heart-centered, purpose-driven, backed by science.
Absolutely. That's where you find meaningful connection with people.
Yeah. If there's one thing, that you would want to gift every human being, aside from self-awareness, but if there's one thing that you would want to gift every human being when it comes to behavior, what would that gift look like and how would someone apply it?
Again, I'm going to go back to the idea of money temperament and money energy. When you can shift your understanding of your temperament or discover your temperament and shift that toward a money energy that's impactful and moving forward, you can go from scarcity to possibility. Does that make sense to you? We go from scarcity to possibility, then we begin creating wealth slowly but surely. And when we implement things like the money multiplier system, now we can speed our way to wealth, right? Because we have a proven methodology that, as Brandon said, has been around for over 250 years. That's amazing to me.
I love that. Everyone, I'm with Jeffrey Morris. He's with DreamSmart Behavioral Solutions. You can contact him at jmorris@dreamsmartbehavioralsolutions.com. Again, that's jmorris@dreamsmartbehavioralsolutions.com, or give him a call. Like Brent and Hannah, he's not worried about not giving his number out there. It's 760-415-1071. Again, 760-415-1071. And Jeff, stick around. We're going to have a huddle like right after Hannah's segment.
Awesome. Thank you, brother.
All right. Thank you so much. And you know what? Hey, all Marines all day, my friend.
Got it, Marine. Semper Fi.
Semper Fi. Wow. Okay. Have Brent, had Jeffrey, and now, drum roll, we are going to have Hannah Kesler coming to stage. Hey, Hannah, how are you?
That's my drum roll. You like it?
Oh, I like it. I heard the flapping thing or the dog paddling. There was one thing going on. I know it was one of those two things. Welcome to the show.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here, Robert. I'm even more excited to talk about my favorite topic, money.
I know, let me get this on there. I'm like, there we go. See, I'm with Hannah Kesler. She's Chief Operations Officer of the Money Multiplier Method. You can call her at you can contact her at Hannah@themoneymultiplier.com, or call 913-908-3511. And, Hannah, you got to hear your dad talk for a little bit. You got to hear Jeffrey talk a little bit. And in a way, you're like in an ideal seat because you can kind of reflect upon what they're saying somewhat. And then you can add your spice into the mix as well. But a part of that is I get to reflect a little bit. And in a way, I'm envious of you. I'm envious of you because, you got to start in such a way where you're a part of this whole new money energy, that we may not have had in our lives. And you're also a part of the next step in the generational wealth that is being created, that will help yourself and those family members that come after you. But here's the kicker. Not every family member is smart enough to do what you do. And you chose to act on it, and you've chosen to amplify it. At 18 years old, I believe you started your own infinite banking, account, and you've been growing ever since. Why you, and what makes you that special cat that's different than others that may be your same age?
Yeah. Hey, and before I even get into that, let me tell you this, because actually my aunt and my uncle, they just came over to my condo over here in Daytona Beach, Florida. That's where I live at. And I just saw them yesterday. And I'll tell you, this concept, the infinite banking concept, what we like to call the Money Multiplier Method. I mean, we've been around this stuff. I kind of make the joke since I've been pooping in my diapers.
Yeah.
But Dad, started implementing this in 2008. And so he was telling the family members about this. And I'll tell you, it started just last year where Aunt Sandy and Uncle Brad, they started their first policy, and they've been hearing this message for the last 16 years. So it's taken them 16 years to start this journey, but then now they're here. They're on the other side and we're helping them. And it's a full family function affair now, which is a whole lot of fun. But
I love that. I love that. So you're making me feel good about my 4.5 years. So thank you for that.
We all got to start somewhere, man.
We all got to learn how to tie that lace.
But honestly, like just coming from a second generation viewpoint and then also being a Gen Z individual myself, like I get it. We have specifically my generation with the TikTok era, the DoorDash, the Uber Eats. I mean, we're a very big, I like to call it the drive-through mentality, the microwave mentality. And to your point, what you said earlier in the show, Robert, you said the slowest way to success. That's what you wanted to name your book. That's what I call is wealth. A lot of people just want to get rich quick. Y'all, getting rich quick doesn't make sense. It's like it's not going to last. It's not an everlasting thing. Wealth is built up over time because just like his dad has taught me when I was a young girl, he always says, it doesn't matter how much you make. It only matters how much you keep. And so just getting back to the basics, that's what I really have a big burning passion and desire for, is just teaching people how money actually works. And I'll tell you this, Robert, maybe you can kind of help me here. I'm trying to find another word for budget, because I know people think of budgeting like it's a chore, but it doesn't have to be a chore. And there's a lot of apps out there. I'm a huge advocate for this app called Rocket Money that kind of helped me do all.
Okay. I don't call it my budget. I call it my basket.
My basket.
And so it's like, and so I tell my kids that don't think of it as a budget, think of it as a basket, because budget's where you go to get cheap. You're not getting cheap. What you're trying to do is you're trying to create wealth. And what did they do in old times? They had baskets, and in the baskets were when we were farmers, we would put all our stock into it, and then we would conduct trade. And so I always say, keep adding to your basket and you will find your wealth.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I like the basket. And it honestly goes back to even just the bartering system that we had back in the day. And that's what we need to learn, is we need to understand how we got here and how we got on this fractional reserve lending and taken away from the gold standard. It just gets so interesting once you start to nerd out on it. I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to this stuff.
Oh my God. I love that. And here's the thing. I mean, you put effort into it, Hannah. This doesn't all just come because you're riding on dad's coattails.
No.
This doesn't all come, just because, you dabble here and you dabble a little bit there, and you go off script and you take time off, on lawn extensions. I mean, you really have taken up this flag, so to speak, and you really are a product of the product, and you really have taken this mantle of saying, I'm going to bring as many people with me. I'm going to make great friendships. I'm going to show, through video, and I get to see you sometime and comment, on some of the things you're doing, the excursions of Hannah Kesler. I mean, I can see it now on television somewhere on one of those life channels, but it's like, that's what I appreciate about you, because, so many times kids have it, but they don't use it. And then sometimes kids don't have it and they go out and find it, but you've had it and you've amplified it. And that, to me, is what makes you so different. Is, it's not just that you believe in it, you actually profess it. And that's what I love about you. And, quite frankly, it brings joy to your heart each and every time you bring someone into the fold. It's like, oh my goodness, like you said, it's like I'm getting them to walk through the door. It's like I'm getting them across over on the other side. It's like, and it truly is that way, isn't it?
It is. No, it is. And that's the thing that we just have to keep going at. It's an ongoing thing that we have to just keep evolving and learning. I mean, in this black book back here, Becoming Your Own Banker, Nelson talks about the arrival syndrome, and we cannot hit that arrival syndrome, because if you do and you think you know everything there is to know on this planet, you're better off as dead. You might as well just rot. Right? We gotta keep at this and evolving. And that's the thing sometimes I think people may get the misunderstanding about, is that, oh, it's Brent Kesler's company and Hannah just got everything handed to her on a silver platter and a silver spoon. And it's like, if you really know my father, he told me when I was 18 years old, he says, Hannah, it has been great, but now that you're 18, it's no longer my responsibility to keep you alive anymore. So good luck. Right?
Yeah, no, I remember that. I was around. I totally remember that. I was like, wow, okay, I'm learning something here. Troy Jones, you're out. No, I'm just kidding. No, and I get that. And, and that's what I love about your approach is you really have taken it on, and you're really moving this ball forward. But, when you go out there, and you've talked to a lot of audiences, and not every audience is created equally. And so I don't know why I did it, because I'm a crazy guy. I picked the entrepreneurial audience, and it doesn't matter if they're young. It doesn't matter if they're old. It doesn't matter if they're somewhere in between. They need to know this concept, because so often, I always say, entrepreneurs have a habit of putting themselves last. Yeah. Entrepreneurs are the ones that don't know self-care and self-awareness. They spend far too much time working on what they do and not enough on, working on who they are. And for me, this is a concept, if anything else, it's a concept of self-care, because the more you utilize this concept over time in the slowest way to success, and you're spot on. That's what made me think of it, because what you start and what is slow becomes fast and starts to work for you. And many times entrepreneurs work so hard all the time, they don't understand that there are easy buttons out there. And this is a process that it may not be tomorrow, but you go in a year, you go in 3 years, you go in 5 years, and all of a sudden it's just like things start becoming a lot easier, don't they?
It does. It does. And that's just the evolution of the time that it is. You know, you've probably seen those memes on Facebook. Hey, would you rather have $1 million or would you rather have a penny that's doubled every day for 30 days? I'll
Right.
take a penny doubled every day for 30 days forever, right? Because it's the compounding, uninterrupted compounding growth that people don't understand. And
Yeah.
here's the biggest misconception. You know, people think that, hey, I love paying cash for things, because when they think they pay cash for things, they don't have to pay any payments and they don't have to pay any interest. But that's not the truth, because when you pay cash for things, you're giving up the future earning rights that this dollar could have bought in you. And that gets deeper and deeper into what's really called Austrian economics and deeper into this concept that's called the infinite banking concept. But we just got to understand how money actually works. And that's what I challenge everybody to do day in and day out.
Yeah. And again, you know, it's like, I tell people all this time, I understand it's sometimes hard to get, because they've been telling you the sky is yellow for life. And then all of a sudden one day you wake up and then someone say, no, it really is blue.
Yep.
The sky is really blue. And you know, and sometimes as you get older, I mean, you know, like a lot of us guys and gals that are older, it's like, you know, we've had so many things go on in our life, you know, it starts to make you not really step out into maybe excellence as fast as you would like, you know, and again, what I love about you is you kind of create a reflection of, man, if I would have known then, you know, what I'm learning now from you, how it would be different. But the best thing that I remember you saying is, you know, your then starts right now.
Yes.
Right?
When was the best time to plant a tree? It was
Yeah.
20 years ago. When's the next best time? Today. It's now. Because
Yeah.
time is the only resource we don't get back. I think everybody can agree on that. Money will come and go. Friends, relationships will come and go. But it's the time that we don't get back. And that's what I really have a passion for, is for people reclaiming their time freedom. Because, hey, if I want to go and sit my butt on the boat on a Wednesday afternoon, I want to do so. I don't want my pocketbook to dictate how I'm spending my time freedom, my location freedom at, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So one last question, because I don't get to ask you this too much. And so, you know, favorite dad story, you know, or just any little story that you can think about dad, you know, pops, that you'd want to share with us.
Yeah, honestly, you know, the one that is popping in my head right now is honestly the volleyball games and going to nationals with Pops in Denver. That's one of my most precious stories that I think about when I think of dad and like just the times of growing up. But I will say, here recently, it's definitely traveling around the country with him. We get along very well. We're very similar people, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I can move into an apartment with dad and he'd be good, right?
I love it.
We say this all the time. Dad, I love you. And he goes, Hannah, I love you, but I would never live with you again. I said, Dad, I agree with you. So we vibe pretty well together when we're on the road and we're traveling. But seriously, doing this with your family, it's life-changing. I mean, it's really cool just to be on the same page with everybody.
I love that. Everyone, I'm with Hannah Kesler. She's Chief Operation Officer of the Money Multiplier Method. You can contact her at Hannah. That's HANNAH. That's one of those
kind of same ways, forwards and backwards, baby.
Yeah, and it's like ABBA or something. What do they call that? There's a certain word for that.
It's called a polydrone. I think.
Yes, you know, my favorite polydrone is here today, Hannah Kesler. You can contact her at Hannah at moneymultiplier.com or call 913-908-3511. And at this time, I'd love to bring Jeffrey back in, and hopefully, Brent, are you still there? We want to bring you back in just on a little bit of reflections, you know, with each other. And so, hey, Brent, you're first up. You know, I'm going to put you out there first, and you got to hear Jeffrey and Hannah. And I can't imagine you couldn't be any more impressed with Jeff, and certainly any more proud than Hannah. of Hannah.
Oh, absolutely, man. Great information. These guys are a wealth of knowledge, and, of course, right. Like I've known Hannah all her life, and, Jeffrey, we've met in the past as well too. Right. And, I just know they have a passion to serve others, and right. And anyway, the late Zig Ziglar said this quote, and I love this quote. And he says, if you help enough other people get what they want, you end up getting what you want. And I know Jeff and Hannah both have that passion. They share that same vision, just to help people, And so they are the experts in their area. And that's what they're doing. They're just continuing to serve more and more people. So so great information from them both.
Love that. And Jeffrey, of reflection on Hannah and Brent.
Well, number one, they're both very similar, like you said. I'm listening to Hannah, but I'm saying Brent. Like, what an unbelievable family legacy, Brent, that you've created with your daughter and all the other ones, but nothing more impactful than the relationship with your kids. Like, we'll be talking about my generational wealth that I would like to create with my kids, right? It's the best thing that we can leave our kids is a legacy, some of financial, some character, but I'm in the legacy stages of my life. I don't see the end of it, right? But it's closer than it was before, right? I'm 57 years old, and every day I wake up, I'm saying, how do I go and impact somebody today? So when I take my slippers off for the last time, right, I can say, man, I impacted a lot of people. And I look in how we might impact more people together.
That's so powerful. And I'm 57 also, Jeff.
All right. I love that. Oh my gosh, that is great. And Hannah, you have Pops on here. Jeff Morris, definitely an impactor. What's your reflection for them?
Yeah, well, about my dad, my Nana has always taught me if I have nothing nice to say, I shouldn't say it at all. Just kidding. No. I'm very grateful for Dad. We talk almost every single day, and
oh man, right there.
But I will say too, like Jeff, seriously, because how people think about their money is going to greatly impact how much money that they have. And sometimes people just even think that they're not worthy of it, right? Just because of trauma in the past and things that they've experienced up to this point in their life. So I truly believe all of the difference, like y'all have heard about the 5 circles or the 7 circles of your life. It's not so much keeping them in balance. It's keeping them integrated together and working that integration between the work and life balance together, whether it's your personal, your spiritual, your health side of it all of it. It's very, very important. And I had a big realization like not too long ago. I felt like I was 16 again and felt like I had everything figured out. And then here comes the Holy Spirit talking to me again saying, hey, Hannah, slow down. We got some other learning roads and blocks that we got to hop over again. So just everything. Seriously, y'all. So thank you for today.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for everyone on here today. Everyone, I just, give them a shout out, Brent, Hannah, Jeff, thank you so much for being on the show today. You don't have to go home or, stay on the show, but we can't stay here today. So we're going to get going. So thank you so much in imparting, really, really your passion, your knowledge, and your pursuit of excellence, not just for yourself, but see what I love about each and every one of you is you help others, help them pursue their excellence. And that's what I am most grateful for. So we're going to end the show on that note.
Mr. Robert,
thank you. Yes.
If it's okay with you, can I give a gift to your audience for listening and tuning in, or not the time today?
You know what? Go ahead. We will splice the show and get it in here. Because I know we're already over on time. I
know. If people reach out to me, I will send them a copy of our ebook, Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery. So send me an email, hannah@themoneymultiplier.com. And for any of my people who have children, I wrote a children's book, The Companion. So I highly recommend just looking into this as well. So I just want to give it as a free gift to all of the listeners. Okay.
I love that. And send me an email with that and I'll have our tech people put that into the transcript for us. Everyone, thank you so much. Thank you for the show today. And everyone else, we are not here next week because we have the Art of Connection Summit. It's artofconnectionsummit.com. Please come join us. We have over 100 people registered so far, and we want to bring on some more. Have a great week, everyone, and see you in 2. Thank you.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
You've been watching the iNetrepreneur Show, a production of the iNetrepreneur Radio Network with host Robert W. Jones. Join Robert each week as he visits with new and exciting guests who inspire, teach, and mentor entrepreneurs worldwide. Follow Robert each Thursday at 1:30 p.m. Pacific, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, and 8:30 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time.